What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. If you click the video, you know what the topic's about. I know there's been a ton of videos talking about vulcanized versus cup sole, but I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring, give you my 2 cents. Growing up skating in the early 2000s, it was always cup soles. They kind of dominated the market. So I have an experience with vulcanized shoes up until the last few years. And trying out a new little lens right here. A little wider. I've had it for a while, but I've never really messed with it. So this video may turn out like shit, but here we go. And look, see that? That's a mic on my hat. I've always used the mic, but I've officially joined the Cool Kids Club by putting it on my hat. So now I'm an official cool YouTuber, right? Yeah, let's get into the difference of the shoes and why I prefer one over the other. Before we do that, let's get a little word from our sponsor. Are you a fucking badass skater? You need a badass fucking skateboard? Well then look no further, because you found it. Go to snakefarmco.com so you can get boards like this one, this one, this one, and even this one. Support the first veteran-owned skate company and go get your board today. Link in the description. Definitely not a sponsor of this video. Alright, let's get into a vulcanized shoe first. This is a vulcanized Vans Rowley re-release. Pretty sick shoe. So, the thing with vulcanized shoes, they're usually much simpler designs. That's mainly because the process of vulcanizing a shoe, it limits the kinds of materials you can use. You got to keep the process pretty simple, because when you make a vulcanized shoe, the whole shoe gets heated up to about, I believe I saw it's like 170 Celsius, so it's like 338 Fahrenheit, and that happens for about 2 hours. So you can't have any plastics or certain kinds of foams or even other outer materials, because it will just melt and disintegrate and go away. So yeah, kind of the process of a vulcanized shoe is pretty interesting. It's kind of what happens when they make a vulcanized shoe, much like a cup sole, is the upper is constructed in, from what I've seen, a very similar way, but it's basically how the upper is attached to the lower. So they make the upper, they make the bottom sole right here, and what they do is they will put it together. They will put the foxing tape around the shoe. Skate shoes will usually have that extra cap right here for, obviously we're flicking off there, that kind of stuff. They put all this foxing tape around here. This stuff is basically, you could rip it in half. Until it's heated up, this stuff is just garbage. So it doesn't get its strength until it's heated up. So they put the foxing tape around there, which attaches, and they do use glue. Yeah, they put the foxing tape around there with some glue, very pliable. They put it all on there, and then they put it in the oven, and what the oven does is it constricts it. So that's why you can see, even on this shoe right there, it kind of puts it all together, gives it its strength, and usually the sole seems like it's a little thinner, and that's because of that construction. But what's happening is when that's put together that way, you're kind of sitting on top of the sole. So your foot's, right there. So your foot's on top of the sole. Actually, pretty cool process. But that's why vulcanized shoes don't have a lot of the technical stuff in them, you might say. Let's get into some pros and cons of some Vulcs, and then we'll get into the cup soles. So the pros of a Vulc. So one of the things that most people say is board feel. It has a lot of board feel, and that comes from kind of the process of the way they make the shoe. The sole is much thinner. That's why they usually come with thicker insoles, but the board feel is always much better on a vulcanized shoe. And once again, because of the process of a vulcanized shoe, they do have a quicker break-in time, and I think that's from the heat process. It kind of breaks down the materials and makes them just kind of more malleable, a little softer, so they're going to be more broken in just right out of the box. They're going to be more flexy and twisty, unlike a cup sole. One thing a lot of people say, and I noticed this too, and it can work in both ways, is because you're flicking off the same material all the time, you'll have a very responsive flick, and it's going to be very consistent, especially right out of the box. That's why people like them right out of the box. For me, it's a little bit different. It really depends on the vulcanized shoe, much like it can with cup soles, but a lot of vulcanized, they're going to have kind of the same toe cap. So some people really like the flick, some people don't. I've realized that the flick is not necessarily for me, and I think I know why now. Another part people really like is the grip on a vulcanized shoe. And once again, I think that comes from the heating process. It makes this stuff a little softer because it has been heated up. So a little softer means it's gonna dig into that grip better, and it's just gonna be overall just grippier shoe, you could say. And then the last part is the price, because it costs much less to make a vulcanized shoe because of kind of all the above. Because it limits the material, so you can't put as much tech in the shoe because you have to heat them up. So usually it keeps the materials down, which reflects the cost. And because it's just that foxing tape that holds it all together, that's what gives it the classic like vulcanized shoe look. So yeah, that's kind of all the pros, or the ones that matter. Let's get in some of the cons. Basically, the cons of vulcanized shoes are kind of going to be the pros of cup sole shoes. That's just kind of how it works. So the cons, I'm sorry, I can't have this thing. I feel like an idiot. Maybe another day I'll be cool, but I can't have this thing on my freaking head anymore. So I'm gonna put it right, meow, haha. Okay, should still be able to hear me. So the cons of Volks is that they just won't last as long, and that is because the material gets a little bit broken down in that heating process. So it's like I said, the price point, they're not gonna last as long. They might blow apart because of that. All these vulcanized shoes have always come apart around here or around here for me. So it's just part of it. But you get your board feel, you get your price point, you get all those things. You don't have to break them in. But yeah, they're just not gonna last as long. And this is more a personal one. So for vulcanized shoes, I can't feel the flick. It may feel consistent, but it's very important for me, especially with like a kickflip, that I feel that material kind of dragging up the board. So when I skate vulcanized shoes, I can't feel it, which it throws off my timing, it throws off everything for me. So I would put that's in the cons for me personally. You guys might have different experience with that, but I feel disconnected from the shoe once I flick. Up until that point, it feels great, but once I flick, everything's kind of all over the place for me. Another con is the impact protection. Because that sole is a little thinner, I mean, you can rely on the insoles, but overall, vulcanized shoes are just gonna have less impact protection than like a cup sole because of the way they're built. So yeah, overall protection, even on the sides, sometimes they're not as bulky of a shoe. So overall protection, they just may overall hurt your feet more, but a good insole can fix a lot of that, but not all of it. And like I kind of mentioned previously, because of the way they're constructed, they can fall apart quicker, so they don't last as long. But it's that could go into, I guess, one category. But because of the construction, the foxing tape, yeah, they just don't last as long, and they can just blow apart easier. Can happen with a cup sole, but from my experience, I've had it happen way more with a vulcanized shoe. So yeah, that's kind of the pros and cons. Vulcanized still have, they're still really great shoes. Every brand's a little bit different. And like I said, this all comes down to personal preference. This is just my 2 cents on Volks versus cups. So now we can get into the cup shoes. So let's do that. So yeah, now we can talk about a cup sole. And the reason I chose this is because this is what I've been skating, a Nike Dunk. This, the stock footage I've been showing, it's kind of why I picked the Vans. And this is a similar shoe to the Jordan showed in the video. But yeah, basically kind of opposite stuff is a vulcanized shoe, where you can have so much more technology in a cup sole. Materials you can use are more unlimited in a sense, because everything's glued together. It's all cold construction, I think is what they call it. So the way that a cup sole shoe is made is they make the upper much like a vulcanized shoe, but they can use all those different materials. They can use different foams, they can use different support, they can put padding in certain places. So it gives kind of an advantage if that's what you're into. Like I said, it all comes down to personal preference. But then they create the sole separately. And the sole, because it's a cup sole, the sole comes around the upper. So that's why it's kind of like cup. It cups your foot. So, and they can also put like foams and stuff into the outsole. And then what they do is they glue around the side and they glue it in. And then not all, but some, they stitch it around just for extra stuff. The Dunks are like that. There's a lot of shoes that they do stitching, but some are just glued in. And same with the glue around the top, little bead there. But yeah, it's just a different kind of process to make the shoe. And that's why you can get just much more protection and kind of cooler designs, and it's almost limitless with a cup sole. That's what makes it interesting. So now the same thing, we get into the pros and cons. I bet you're probably gonna know what a lot of those are. All right, let's get into some of the pros of a cup sole, which recently I figured out is definitely my favorite option. So you can call it bias, you can call it whatever. Yeah, I'm biased. From experience, I'm biased. From my era, I'm biased. I don't know. But one thing you'll definitely get, and being as like, you know, more of an old head in the skateboard world, whatever you want to call me, there's a lot of us out there. The cup soles are going to give you much better foot protection. Overall, they're just going to be comfier. They're going to protect your foot better all the way around. And I've experienced this recently when I went down my vulcanized little thing I did earlier. You can watch those videos, past few videos. I kept hurting my feet in different ways, not necessarily from the bottom, but from the top, from the side. The tongues were too thin. The sides didn't have enough material, and board slamming into it. It's just overall protection. So it's almost like cup soles are the way to go for us old guy skaters, OGs, whatever you want to call us. The next thing you can throw in there is the durability. Just overall, these shoes are just going to last much longer. They can still blow apart where, you know, if there's faults in the glue or faults in the construction of the outsole being attached to the upper, they can still fall apart. Things can happen. It varies from brand to brand, but most of the time you're going to get much more life out of a cup sole. There's just going to be more materials, more reinforcement, more things like that in the shoe. From what I've experienced with cup soles, another pro is definitely a consistent flick, because I like flicking off the material of the shoe. I usually go for a suede, and for me, I'm just used to it. So I gotta feel that material flick off, because I feel like it translates into my toe or my heel. I don't do a lot of heel flips, but I need to feel the flick. And I can sacrifice some of the board feel on the bottom to feel when I'm going for a flick. So if you're not a big flip trick guy, you know, maybe cup soles don't make sense for you, and you want the board feel if you're a big curb skater or whatever it may be. But I need to feel that flick. And that's what I've realized recently trying Volks again. I didn't know what was wrong with my flip tricks. For me, it was the vulcanized. And yeah, the overall comfort is just gonna be better on these. It's the next pro, because they can add the foams into the outsole, because they can add more padding in the sides and more support because it doesn't go through that heating process. They're just gonna be overall more comfortable. Last thing, let's get into the cons. So this one I'm at free ball. You know, the other stuff I was kind of writing down, brainstorming. This one, you know, I got kids and shit. My little script went off script, so bear with me here. The cons, let's think about the pros of the vulcanized. So cons of cup soles is they're going to cost more. They are going to cost more because of that technology that can be in the shoe, because the materials they can use, because the process is a little, you could say a little more labor intensive, but most of it comes down to materials and labor. So they are going to cost more, but they'll last longer. Another con is the break-in time. So these, because nothing's been heated up, it's just kind of raw materials, as you could say. They might not feel as good out of the box, and they might be a little stiffer. Like, these are definitely stiffer than those Vans. So they're gonna take a little bit longer to break in, and you just gotta invest into them a little bit more. Like I said, they will last you longer. Another con is board feel. You won't have as much board feel with a cup sole because they tend to be a little bit thicker. A lot of cup soles, you know, they'll have a thicker sole, so they have a thinner insole. So your board feel is going to sacrifice a little bit, but once again, personal preference. I can sacrifice a little board feel, get used to it, but I need that flick. Just like I can get used to the flick of a vulcanized, it's just foreign to me because I skated mostly cup soles. And don't forget, there is exceptions to every one of these rules. There's vulcanized, because I've skated vulcanized that have a good flick on them and a little less board feel, and same with cup soles. I've skated cup soles that have a lot of board feel, but they'll just blow out quick. Another con, they can tend to be a little more heavier if you pay attention to that kind of stuff, because usually there is more materials in them. So yeah, they can be a little bit heavier, but it's never been nothing, little weight, never been anything to hold me back. So yeah, those are some cons on cup soles. Let me know in the comments. You guys Volt guy, cup sole guy, and why? because we all have different styles of skating, and that's the beautiful thing about skateboarding. So what do you guys like to skate? I've kind of skated it all. And to end this video, I'm gonna give a couple, I don't know, recommendations you could say for Volks and cup soles from my experience. So the Volks that I had the best experience with were the Jamie Foys. Those are like my top five shoe of all time, because I felt I didn't have to flick off of the Volk on those shoes. And that's what I'm saying, there's exceptions to every rule. I felt like I was flicking off the material off the toe, and that helped me a lot. So that's a Volk I definitely would skating in. And the S Caspian, same thing. It's not a super thick foxing tape, so I was flicking off the suede instead of the foxing tape, at least after a very short time. And then as far as cup soles go, hate to say it, you know, I'm not stoked on Nike as a brand overall, but the Dunks, I mean, it's a classic silhouette, and man, they just last. They last forever. The price point is shit on these ones, you know. You get them retail, they're 110, but anymore, that's not too bad. I mean, the new Vans Anthony Van Engelen shoe is 130 bucks. So it's not making the Dunk look too bad anymore. And then pretty much any S shoe you can get. I've had very good experience with S shoes, and they pretty much are cup soles besides those Caspians, so you can't go wrong with those. On a little side note, speaking of Soltech S, Ryan Sheckler, after 27 years, has left Etnies. He's going to Municipal, it looks like Municipal. And that is Mark Wahlberg's brand. And I've been joking with my buddy forever, like, what if Mackie Mac gets in the freaking shoe game, skate shoe game? That'd be kind of sick. So I'm kind of interested to see what they got going on. I wouldn't be ultra hyped on supporting it because he's not a skater, but if he loves skateboarding and he wants to invest in it, and he must have gave Sheckler a pretty big payday, because that's a pretty big 27 years. Holy shnikey. I think it's 27, but either way, that's some, you know. So yeah, if you guys got any recommendations for people, whether it be a cup sole, a vulcanized, leave it down there. What do you like to skate? Did I hit some bad points, right points? I'll leave anything out, just let me know. And yeah, if you want to, you can like, subscribe. I never ask that, because it's like, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. But we're having fun with these videos. I'm having fun with shoes. I'm having fun with skateboarding. And appreciate every single one of you guys that watches the videos, hits the buttons, that do the things, and all that crap. And until the next one, I will see you guys on the next meow.